Now, Matthew goes on to Mark chapter 12. So the next book, go to the right, 12 chapters into that book. Look at chapter 12 of Mark, verse 43. And this is fascinating. This is now Jesus with his disciples. They parked by the treasury. That's where everybody gave. They didn't take collections in the service. They had this big receptacle. In fact, Josephus tells us they were big like cornucopia, horns. They were brass, and they looked like a big funnel. And they went into this treasury of the temple. And all the people would go on pilgrimages, and they would come up, and they would bring sometimes literally wheelbarrows full of money. And they would park their wheelbarrow, and they would start shoveling, or they would hire someone to shovel into a metal container, a funnel, all this metal coinage. And it would just make, there are accounts of how much money and how much sound and all this. And so Jesus parked his disciples, and, he was sitting there watching, and, he told about how some blew horns so that nobody would miss their giving, and they did all that. And then the crowd left, and this little quiet, older woman comes up with her hand, and she just, as if it would make any sound, she sticks her hand in, opens it, and scurries off. And Jesus, who knows all things, tells us she put in 2 leptons, the Greek word lepton, which was a tiny, tiny, like a fish scale almost, kind of coin. It was the very smallest coin of the ancient world. And she had 2 of them. Widow's mites. Look what Jesus says in verse 43. He said, your giving must be proportionate to gain my favor. You know what he was saying? The people that made all the noise with the shovelfuls, they could shovel all day and it wouldn't make a dent in what they had. They were doing that for the show. That woman gave everything she had. And that meant something to Christ. He said, to gain my favor, your giving has to be proportionate. Verse 43, so he called his disciples to himself and said to them, assuredly, I say to you that this poor widow has put in more than all those who have given to the treasury. Now, that statement could even be not just that day's, more than, it actually says all who have given. What Jesus was saying is, I measure by how much it costs you. Turn the next book from Mark to Luke, chapter 6. There are 2 of them in the 6th chapter. And here's the 4th simple truth about money Jesus gives in Luke 6 and verse 35. Jesus said, selfishness ruins giving. Now, it's a negative example. And what Jesus is saying is, love your enemies, do good, and lend to your enemies. The context is a negative one. It's talking about people that don't like us. Now, it's even harder that way, but how much more people that like us? But look what he says. Love your enemies, do good, and lend, hoping for nothing in return. Jesus said, selfishness ruins giving. If you hope, like it says in the book of James, if you give money in the church, if you give enough, they're going to say, oh, come up here and sit in the good seats. I can imagine this. I've pastored enough years. I've listened to, the people that work the doors enough times. I've heard them. They said, did you see the car they drove in? I think that thing has heated handles. Look at this black. That's a big, whoa, wonder where they're going to sit, And we all are impressed by wealth. In the book of James, it says that they went beyond that. They put them down front because they were so crusty with gold. But the poor people that didn't have anything to give, they didn't even give them a chair. Jesus says, selfishness ruins giving. If you hope for something in return, you lose. But if you hope for nothing in return, if you selflessly give, look at the rest of verse 35, your reward will be great. And you will be sons of the Most High, because he's kind to the unthankful and the evil. How much more will he be to us who selflessly sacrifice to him?